This is 4-7 point slope form. The point slope form of an equation of a line helps us to write an equation in slope intercept form. It's really very helpful. This is something that you definitely want to make sure that you learn and you understand and you know well for, we're going to use it in geometry, algebra 2, and with the further math classes as well. In order to use point slope form, we need to have both a point and a slope. So the point would go into the x1, y1 spot, and the slope would go into the m. This first y and the first x you see are constants. They remained as the y and the x. We don't plug anything into that spot. So for instance, if I have an ordered pair of 2 and 27, then I would put the 2 in the x1 spot as seen, and I'd put the 27 into the y1 spot as seen. And as you can see here, we had a slope of 25. It doesn't say that anywhere, but I'm just assuming since the 25 is sitting in the slope position. Now we have finished because it's in point slope form. We are done. Every time I start with my formula, because this needs to be memorized anyway, so it's just something you should start with every single time. Then we plug in our y1 is coming from where I marked that 0. The m is the 4/5. Then x minus my x1 is -3, so minus -3. Keep in mind that minus a negative is a positive, so that needs to change. And I don't need to keep the minus 0, so I can just write y equals 4/5 x plus 3. And I can't do anything more than that because it's asking me to leave it in point slope form. So I'm done. Next one, same thing, equation y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Y minus my y1 is the 2. My m is the -7, the slope. X minus and my x1 is the 4. And at this point, I'm done. I have it in point slope form. Graph the line described by the equation. So we can take the ordered pair. Remember, it would have been, for the x, it would have been -1. So just the 1, positive 1, is my x value. And -1 over on the left would have been my y value, just the 1. And then my slope is 3. So I can start at 1, 1. And then I can rise and run based on my slope. If my slope is 3, it's 3 over 1. So up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, over 1. Remember to draw your line and connect and put arrows on the end. Okay, my ordered pair here, it must have been +3 on the x and then a -2 in the y to result in that plus, because it would have been minus -2. And then that's why I changed to the plus. And my slope is -1 over 2. The negative means that either the top or the bottom needs to be negative, but not both. If both were negative in the slope, it would be a positive. So I'm starting at 3, -2. And then I'm rising -1, so down 1, and then over +2, so to the right 2. Down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. And this does make sense because if you notice, my slope is a negative slope, because this was negative. I have a downhill slope, my negative slope. On the left-hand side, that was a positive slope, so my slope should be going uphill. Okay, writing linear equations. It doesn't matter what form they're asking us to write. If I'm given a point and a slope, I promise you I'm going to start with point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Y minus 4 equals, my m is -6, x minus -2. So remember, I got my m from here, my x1 was -2, and my y1 was 4. The minus negative changes to a plus, so I have y minus 4 equals -6 times x plus 2. From here, I can distribute my -6, so y minus 4 equals -6x minus 12, and then I can isolate y. To isolate y, I'm going to get rid of this -4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Since I can only add and subtract like terms, I can only add and subtract. to the number at the end here. So then I end up with y equals negative 6x minus 8. This is now in slope-intercept form. So to go from point slope to slope-intercept, what I did was I distributed point slope to slope-intercept. Step 1 was distribute, and step 2 was to isolate the y. And if I want to go from slope-intercept to standard form, my x needs to be in front. So I'm going to move slope-intercept to standard form. I'm going to move the x to the opposite side by adding 6x to both sides. And I end up with 6x plus y equals negative 8. This is now in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. It really just means that x comes first. That's the main idea behind it, at least. Okay, B, write an equation in slope-intercept form with the slope of negative 3 and a point, negative 3, negative 1. Well, again, I was given a slope and a point. So y minus y1 equals m, parentheses x minus x1. I've got my m is negative 3, my x1's negative 3, my y1's negative 1. So y minus negative 1 equals m, oops, I know my m, which is negative 3 times x minus negative 3. Well, that becomes a plus. To get it into slope-intercept, remember the steps are right here. What I would do is distribute first, negative 3. So y minus, I can change that to a plus 1 if I want to, whenever I want. But negative 3x, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Let me get rid of this minus negative 1 here. That's becoming a plus. Okay, step 2. This was step 1, was to distribute. And step 2 now is to isolate y by subtracting 1 from both sides to the numbers only, not the variables. So y equals negative 3x minus 10. And it asks for slope-intercept form. I have it in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Because it has a slope, m, and an intercept, b. Remember, point slope has a slope and a point. Okay, write an equation in slope-intercept form. So we want it in y equals mx plus b. With the points, so we've got x1, y1, and x2, y2. So I know I have a point at least. Here's one point that I can use, but I'm missing my slope. Luckily, we can calculate slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my y2 is 2 minus negative 4, all over x2, 3 minus the 1. 2 minus negative 4 becomes plus. We have 6 over 2, which is 3. So now I have a slope as well. I have a slope and a point. I'm going to start with point slope. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Y minus negative 4 is equal to 3 times x minus 1. I'm just going to get rid of that minus negative. Okay, step 1 to get to slope-intercept form would be to distribute. So y plus 4 equals 3x minus 3. Next would be to isolate y, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and y equals 3x minus 7. It is now in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Example D, write a linear equation, again in slope-intercept form. So notice that even though it's saying slope-intercept form, that can be confusing. I'm mostly starting with point slope. Every problem I've done so far, I've started with point slope because it's a great way to get to slope-intercept form. Okay, here I have an x-intercept. Well, an x-intercept can be an ordered pair. If I have an x-intercept, the y value is 0. So ordered pair, negative 2, 0. And a y-intercept, the x value is 0. So really this is just the same problem now as example C, where I had an x1, y1, x2, y2. I had to find the slope, would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is 4 minus 0 over 0 minus negative 2. That's a plus, the minus, the negative is a plus. So I get 4 over 2, which is 2. So I have a slope of 2, and I'll use my ordered pair negative 2, 0. So I'm going to start with point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Y minus 0 equals 2 parentheses x minus negative 2, which is a plus 2. And I can distribute now, so y minus 0 equals 2x plus 4. And minus 0 is nothing. I can add 0 to both sides, but it's really just y equals 2x plus 4 as my final answer. So a couple of different ways you can find the intercepts when just given two ordered pairs. You could write an equation. That might be the easiest. So we could use point-slope form since I have a point and I can calculate slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, x1, y1, x2, y2. So it would be negative 12 minus 8 all over negative 1 minus 4. And negative 12 minus 8 is negative 20 over negative 5, which is positive 4. So my m is 4, and I can use this ordered pair right here with an m equaling 4. So y minus 8 equals 4 times x minus 4. Step 1 would be to distribute, so I get 4x minus 16. And step 2 is to isolate y, so y equals 4x minus 8. Now I can find the intercepts. One way to find the intercepts is to do the cover-up method. So if I'm looking for the x-intercept, then I cover up the y, or plug a 0 in for y. They're really the same idea. So I could put 0 equals 4x minus 8, or if I cover that up, just know that if you have nothing on one side of an equal sign, you have to have a 0 there. And now to solve for x, here's my variable I'm solving for. I add 8 to both sides. I get 8 equals 4x, divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals 2. So my x-intercept is 2, 0. For the y-intercept, remember we do that x is 0, or we can cover up the x. Okay, if we do that, we get y. I have to go back to my original equation here. It was y equals 4x minus 8, so I'll cover up the x, and I get y equals negative 8, so my ordered pair would be 0, negative 8. So my intercepts that I'm finding are right here. Got my x-intercept and my y-intercept.